Guys, are you really struggling with setting boundaries? And are you freaking fed up of being a doormat? Hey, I'm talking here. Then this video is for you. Tip number 1 is recognizing what type of boundary you actually need to set, because there's going to be multiple types of boundaries that you're going to face. So you need to know which one is actually right for you. So the first one is material boundaries. This is where you actually make strict rules about your possessions. So for instance, don't let your sister nick your clothes or your jewellery.
Thank you, Lisa.
Another type of boundary is physical boundaries. This means the space around you. Now, I'm a hugger. I love hugging people, but I recognize that other people may find this uncomfortable. I'm a hugger!
Oh.
No, come here, give me a hug. So what I do in order to handle this actually is when I first meet someone, I go, I'm a hugger. And I kind of pause and I wait to see if they're gonna hug me back. So if you're one of those people that actually doesn't like hugging, because to you that is invading your personal space, what you need to do is set that boundary, whether it's to a friend, to a family member, or to a stranger.
All I wanted was a handshake. No.
And there's mental boundaries. These are your thoughts, your beliefs, your opinions, and your values. Now, let's face it, no one ever is going to agree on all of those. This is where you need to set very strict boundaries on what you believe, even if you get other people trying to shut you down. And emotional boundaries. Now, these are boundaries we need to set, and we all have been there when we've said no and been made to feel guilty about it, when someone else is upset with us, or when someone's upset, we're upset. All of these situations are what need our emotional boundaries.
Should you be eating that?
Why'd you do that? You should not have done that.
Lisa, why are you late on this deadline? Do you even care?
Done that.
When are you having kids?
Emotional boundaries, people! Emotional boundaries. All right, guys, tip number 2 is get uber freaking specific. Now, what I mean by that, guys, is know the who, the what, the when, the why. Like, for instance, is it a Thanksgiving with your family? Is it that every time that one work colleague emails you? So specificity, clarity is key. What I do is I know that I have to work backwards in order to move forward. So now, let's take the steps. The who, my darling, adorable mother. The when I speak to her on the phone. The what, every time I'd get on the phone to her, the very first thing that she would ask is, how are you feeling? Is your gut okay? The why. I suffer from really bad gut issues for 4 years now, and every single time she started the conversation like that, I was only just reminded of how weak I was. When I'm trying to forget, I'm just kept getting reminded. Tip number 3 is you need to mentally prepare. Look, guys, let's freaking face it. It's gonna take courage. It's gonna take bravery to approach and set this boundary, because it's new ground for you. So don't worry, just embrace the truth that it is gonna take courage. Know your words. Practice, practice, practice. You wouldn't go into a ring without knowing how to throw a punch. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is like take number 34 because I keep messing up with my words. If you're about to set a boundary, don't feel bad, but know that you're going to have to practice so you don't go into that situation and freeze. I really want to talk to you about what's on my mind. It's really important to me that we're sitting here and really talking like this, one-on-one. Prepare for pushback. Let's face it, in an ideal world, in a dream world, everybody would answer and respond in the way that we want them to. You set a boundary, someone turns around and is like, of course, absolutely, no problem. but I would be lying. The truth is that you're gonna get pushback. I wish it wasn't so, but you're going to get pushback, even from people that love you. So what I do is I just make sure that I play the scenario in my head, actually like a screenplay. Like, actually, Mum says this, Lisa replies, and I rewrite the screenplay with all different types of scenarios, so that when the camera is rolling and you set the boundary, you know how to respond if they come back to you with something that you weren't expecting. Tip number 4, and this is actually where you get to set the boundary. Now look, I know it's going to be completely different for every person. Here's some overarching tips that you guys can maybe use in order to now actually set the boundary. Learn to say no. Niet, bango. 9. Ohi, no, no bella. Now, I know that's very difficult, and for me, I don't just go no. I find that very disrespectful to the person. So what I do personally is I explain. But now here's the thing, guys. Explain, but don't justify. Don't apologize. Now, I know it's going to be difficult. There are going to be times that you set a boundary and other people won't like it. Other people are going to come back at you, and your instinct may be to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Stop. Do not apologize. Even if you have to stop yourself halfway through, stop the sentence. Explain why you're setting the boundary, but don't justify. If you find that you're in the middle of trying to justify and you're apologizing, cut. It's out. So guys, instead of saying I'm sorry, here are some suggestions. So take, for instance, my mum. I know that she freaking loves me to death, so I don't want to upset her, but I've recognized that it is super important that I set this boundary. So I would call her up and I would talk about how I was feeling, because I could have gone in there and said, Mum, I need to set a boundary. Stop doing this. That's just not how I want to handle a situation in communicating with someone, because when you approach them with that type of attitude, the first thing they're going to do is put the walls up. Let's face it. So, in order for you to communicate, to get what you want, which is set this boundary and have it appreciated, go into it with utter respect for the other person and lay out the ground rules. So for my mum, I said, Mum, I know you love me, but in this moment, every time you ask me how I am feeling, it is always the first thing you say out of your mouth, and it is always with a sad tone. And while I know you don't mean it, letting them know, bring their guard down, it makes me feel weak. And having that open communication with them will allow you to start navigating it together. So when I told my mum this, the very next time I got on the phone with her, she still did it. Like, literally, we had a call. Then the next time, the first thing she does is says it. Now, in that moment, I start getting a little upset, and so I brought it up again in a very calm way, but I brought it up with my mum again and discussed it with her. What I found out from her was that she felt like she wasn't a good mother if she got on the phone with her daughter and didn't ask her how she feels. So now I started to understand why she was doing it. All I could see was that she was making me feel weak. She was reminding me that I was sick. That's all I could see. But once I started to communicate with her, once I started to talk to her about it, and she told me exactly why she did it, now we could really figure out the best way to move forward together. Since then, guys, it has been incredible. My mum no longer says that as the very first thing. I am no longer anxious when I talk to her. We have a wonderful conversation. I now know my mum loves me, and my mum still has space to show that she cares for me by asking me how I'm feeling. Win, win, boom. Tip number 5 is deal with your emotion. You may feel guilty about it. You may feel like you're being mean, and it may be a selfish thing. But that's okay. We need to take care of ourselves before we can help other people. Remember the oxygen mask on the aeroplane? I could go on forever about these emotions. Prepare yourself that you're gonna feel it. Know that it's okay. It's only human, and you have rights. You have the right to say no without feeling guilty. And you have the right to not meet other people's unreasonable expectations of you. You have the absolute right to be treated with respect, and you have the right to make your needs just as important as others. You have rights. Tip number 6 is reinforce your boundaries. Because as much as I wish it wasn't true, guys, you're gonna get people that don't respect your boundaries. You're gonna get people that are gonna push back on your boundaries. You're gonna get people that don't care about your boundaries. So whatever happens, make sure that you keep reinforcing it. And even the people that do respect your boundaries and do adhere by them, they start to get a little loose with them. And one thing that you actually notice is some people think that your boundary has an expiration date on it. So guys, you need to be so freaking proud that you set the boundary. It's never gonna be easy. It's not gonna be an easy road, but be freaking proud of yourself and do a little mini dance. That's the shadow of Michelle. You're one of these people that doesn't want me to hug you. I want a hug! It's almost 12. I deserve my lunch. Just, I start, what is the what? What I do is I walk, yeah.
Like ducking down.
Works, yeah, not coming for a hug.